SI.com has released their top 100 NBA players heading into next season, and outside of the top 10, some very polarizing figures. Let's welcome in Ben Golliver and Rob Mahoney. And Ben, I'll start with you. Draymond Green, number 16. Is that a little too high for the power forward from Golden State?
I totally understand why that would be everybody's first reaction. I mean, I think most people conceive of him as a complementary player on offense. He's not a lead scorer. He's not putting up huge numbers. But what this list really tries to do is pick out the all-around best players. And Draymond Green is one heck of an all-around great player on both sides. So let's start offensively. Yes, he is complementary, but he's very versatile. He can play multiple positions. He's able to support lead scoring options like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. With his outside shooting ability, he's able to, play make a little bit off the dribble. He's able to dive into the paint and draw attention. But of course, defense is where he stands out. He plays both the 4 and 5. He's excellent switching onto smaller players. He can rebound well enough to allow teams to go small and really create lots of space. And I think his overall impact and energy is really just elite. So, we looked at him as the second most important player on Golden State last year. So that slotted him in between Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And we also thought when you compared him to some other power forwards, maybe guys like Chris Bosh, who has some injury questions, or Kevin Love, who's more of an offense first player and not quite as complete, we thought Draymond Green totally deserved the ranking where we put him.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to take into consideration with these kinds of rankings is that we're trying to look at which guys' skill sets transfer across the board. And so, yeah, Draymond is great in Golden State, but he's also a guy who you could plug into almost any roster in the league, almost any kind of system in the league. And when you have a defender of his caliber, a passer of his caliber, a guy who can space the floor, and as Ben said, who can make plays off the dribble, who can do pretty much everything for you except for bulk scoring, that's going to rate really, really well in terms of our evaluations. I mean, he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year. Maybe should have won the award according to some, and he's going to be project to be that going forward. And so when you have a player who has that kind of specialty, this kind of all-around game, I mean, this is where that lands you in terms of an NBA ranking.
All right, you guys make a compelling case about Draymond Green. Let's move on to a point guard, Kyrie Irving. Ben, you guys have him listed at number 23. Is that too low?
Well, he made so much progress last season. I could understand why people would feel that way. I mean, remember back at the beginning of the year, he was asking his teammates, what do the playoffs feel like when he was in a team huddle? By the end of the season, he was a key contributor on a team that went to the finals. He had an unbelievable performance in game 1 of the finals before he ended up going out with a knee injury. And he really proved that he could be an effective offensive player in a very good offense, something that we hadn't seen earlier in his career. So he answered a lot of questions. I think the outstanding issues for us when we looked at Kyrie was how much credit do we give him individually and how much do we give sort of the LeBron effect on his game? And we couldn't really separate the two. We tried to imagine, hey, if we put him back on a team like the Cavaliers were, before LeBron arrived, would he be able to kind of carry that team by himself to greater success? And we still just had doubts about that. I mean, we think he's very well cast as this number 2 guy and maybe not quite the all-around talent, especially on defense, to be a team's best player if that team is going to go anywhere in the playoffs. So that was one of our concerns. Of course, the knee is also an issue too. There was a late-breaking report last week that maybe he's not going to quite be ready to start the season next year. If he does miss some time, of course, we have to factor that into the rankings. So I think those were our biggest concerns with Kyrie. And we are fully prepared. If he has another very strong year, continues to improve, this is a guy we could easily see jumping into, say, the 10 to 15 range next season.
Yeah, former number 1 overall pick, former Rookie of the Year. Rob, let's move on. This is certainly a polarizing player, Carmelo Anthony. He's ranked number 15 on your list. I think if you ask some fans, it's too high, and some fans would probably say it's too low.
And that's why we feel pretty good about it ultimately. I mean, if we're kind of splitting the difference between those extremes, especially because Carmelo, for as good an offensive player as he is, not only is he an aging player, and not only is he coming off a significant injury, but he's also not much of a defender. And so those kinds of one-way guys generally don't do so well in our rankings. If you look at the top 10, maybe with a couple exceptions, maybe for like the most productive offensive players in the league who may be a little bit lacking on defense, but Carmelo's just kind of in a different regard there. given his struggles on that end, and given that his best position at power forward is a position that demands a lot of players defensively. And so when he's not rotating like he should, when he's not able to bully with guys and to rebound with guys on the defensive end of the court, I mean, it's a struggle for him to measure up against the other superstars in the NBA. And so, yeah, really great scorer. We're not disputing that. We're a little wary of his health. We're a little wary of how he might decline as he ages. But certainly, I don't think this is disrespecting him to put him alongside other really good players in this range, given that he really is kind of a one-sided guy at this point.
He's certainly not paid like a 15th ranked guy. He's paid like a 5th ranked guy. Ben Golliver, Rob Mahoney. It's good to be Carmelo Anthony. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.